My name is Eleanor Pierce, and when you've spent 70 years on this earth, you start to think you've seen it all: joy, grief, betrayal, love. But I was wrong. The cruelest betrayal came from the people I brought into this world. 3 children, 3 hearts I thought were made of my own. Michael, the eldest, smart, confident, always chasing business. Rachel, the middle one, my sweet, sensitive girl. And Peter, my baby, the charming one, who could talk his way out of any storm. I raised them alone after my husband died. I sold jewelry, worked 2 jobs, skipped meals, just so they could have what other children had: better schools, cleaner shoes, a chance at life I never did. And for a while I believed it was worth it, until the day they told me to pack my bags. It started small: missed phone calls, forgotten birthdays. Then came the whispering, "Mom's forgetting things. Mom's house is too big for her. Maybe she shouldn't live alone anymore." I heard every word. They thought I didn't. They thought I was fading, but I was sharper than I'd ever been, just quiet, observant. Old age doesn't take your mind, it just teaches you patience. One afternoon, Michael came with papers. He smiled that fake smile, the one he uses when he's about to do something terrible and wants to look kind doing it. "Mom, this is just temporary. It's for your safety. We found a beautiful place, Willow Creek home. You'll love it." I looked at the pen in his hand, the one I'd bought him for his college graduation, and I said softly, "If it makes you feel better, Michael, I'll sign it." He smiled wider, relieved. He didn't notice the second copy I'd prepared weeks ago, the one I had signed first. You see, I'd already been planning for this, because 3 years ago, when my health started to decline, I sold half of my assets quietly and invested through a trust under my late husband's name. And through that trust, I became the silent owner of Willow Creek Senior Living, the very nursing home they thought they were shipping me off to. When they dropped me off that day, I sat in the back seat, looking out the window at the long driveway lined with oak trees. Rachel was crying, Peter was fidgeting with his phone, Michael was calm, too calm. I smiled almost tenderly and said, "Don't worry about me, darlings, I'll be just fine." They kissed my cheek and left. I watched their car disappear down the road, my hand steady on my lap. Inside, the staff greeted me with respect, not as a resident, but as Mrs. Pierce, the owner. But I told them not to say a word. Not yet. I wanted to see how far my children's greed could stretch. The first week was quiet. The residents were kind people with stories like mine, all cast aside, forgotten by families too busy to remember love. We ate together, talked for hours, laughed like teenagers. I started to feel lighter. Then came the visit. Michael showed up first, carrying flowers that probably weren't his idea. He looked uncomfortable, like guilt wrapped in a suit. "Mom, how's everything?" "Comfortable." I nodded. "It's peaceful here." He smiled, relieved. "Good. About the house, we've found a buyer. You'll be proud, it's going for a great price." I smiled back. "I'm sure it is." He didn't know that the buyer he was talking about worked for me, that the money from the sale was being wired directly into my private account. Not his, not Rachel's, not Peter's, mine. A month passed. They visited less and less, but I didn't mind. I was busy reading, writing, walking, planning. Then one morning, the manager brought me a folder. Inside were transfer documents. All 3 of my children had signed authorization papers to move my estate into a family trust. A trust they controlled. I looked at those signatures for a long time, each one a piece of my heart and my history. I took a deep breath and said, "Initiate Clause 17. That was the legal trigger, the one that transferred full control of Willow Creek and all its holdings into my personal ownership, and the clause that froze every trust account tied to my children's names. They had unknowingly given me everything. A week later, they came storming in. Michael's face was pale, Peter's hand shaking, and Rachel, she looked broken. "Mom, what did you do?" Michael shouted. "What I did?" I asked quietly. "You mean what you signed?" Peter slammed his hand on the table. "You tricked us." I leaned forward, eyes calm, voice steady. "No, Peter, I taught you." They looked confused, angry. I continued, "All your lives, I gave you everything: time, money, love. You took, and I gave. And when I was old and tired, you decided I was a burden." I slid a document across the table. "This," I said, "is the new ownership structure. You all work for me now. Willow Creek is my company, and the salaries you've been receiving from my trust accounts, gone." Michael's voice cracked. "Mom, you can't do this." "Oh, I already did," I said softly. Then I smiled, looked straight ahead, and whispered, "Subscribe to the truth that age doesn't make you weak. It just gives you time to plan your revenge properly." They left that day speechless. And I sat in my garden, the one behind the facility, surrounded by roses and old songs on the radio. I didn't cry. I didn't feel triumphant either. I just felt free. Later that night, Rachel called me. She was crying. "Mom, I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know." I smiled into the phone. "You do now. That's enough." Because forgiveness doesn't always mean letting someone back in. Sometimes it just means letting them live with the truth. These days, I still live at Willow Creek by choice. I run the place now. We've expanded, opened a new wing, created art classes, music sessions, laughter groups. It's not a nursing home anymore. It's a sanctuary for people like me who were once underestimated, forgotten, dismissed. Every morning I walk through the halls and hear someone laugh, and I think to myself, they thought I was old and weak. But they forgot I raised survivors, and I became one too. Sometimes the nurses joke that I should write a book. Maybe I will. I'll call it "The Old Woman Who Outsmarted Everyone." And on the dedication page, I'll write for my children, who taught me that betrayal doesn't break you. It simply gives you better material for your next chapter. When the storm comes after revenge, you expect peace, but peace isn't silence. It's what comes when you stop explaining yourself. After my children left Willow Creek that day, I sat by my window and watched the rain roll down the glass. Every drop felt like a piece of my past washing away years of sacrifice, guilt, and the ache of motherhood misunderstood. I wasn't proud. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was simply awake. For 72 years, I'd lived by other people's expectations as a wife, a mother, a widow, a woman who should be grateful for small things. But that night, I looked at my reflection and whispered, "No more shoulds." The next morning, I called my lawyer, Mr. Henson, a kind, soft-spoken man who'd handled my affairs for over 2 decades. "Eleanor," he said, "I take it you want to make the changes official." "Yes," I replied, "and I want to do one more thing. I want to give this place a soul." He chuckled. "A soul, yes," I said, "something money can't fake. Let's start a foundation for residents with no families. I want them to have dignity, not pity." That day, the Pierce Foundation was born. It wasn't about revenge anymore, it was about rewriting the ending. Weeks passed. Willow Creek started to feel alive again, laughter in the halls, music floating from the lounge, staff smiling for real this time. We built a library with secondhand books and old photographs. We planted flowers outside, and the scent of lilac filled the air every morning. One resident, Mr. Cole, used to sit by the window sketching portraits of everyone who passed. He once said to me, "You've got fire in your eyes, Eleanor. You're not here to rest, you're here to rise." Maybe he was right, because for the first time in my life, I felt unstoppable. Then one afternoon, Rachel showed up again. No cameras, no lawyers, no fake smiles. Just her pale, quiet, holding a box in her hands. "May I come in?" she asked softly. I nodded. She sat across from me, eyes glistening. "Mom, I found this while cleaning your old attic." She opened the box. Inside were old letters, photos, my wedding ring, and a small blue ribbon from when she'd won her first spelling bee. "I didn't mean for things to go this way," she whispered. "I know." I said, "You let your brothers lead, didn't you?" She nodded, crying silently. "Michael said it was for your safety. Peter said you'd forget everything soon. I just believed them." I reached across the table, placed my hand on hers. "Rachel," I said gently, "belief isn't the crime. Silence is." She looked up at me, ashamed. "I didn't come for money," she said quickly. "I came to say thank you for everything, and to ask if I could visit you again, properly this time." I smiled. I'd like that. She came every week after that, sometimes with coffee, sometimes with laughter, sometimes with tears. We started over, not as mother and daughter, but as 2 women trying to heal the past. A few months later, Willow Creek hosted its first Family Day, a small event for residents and their loved ones. We had music, food, a small stage for anyone brave enough to sing. I watched families reunite, some awkwardly, some beautifully. And then I saw Michael standing at the gate. He looked different, older, tired, maybe even remorseful. Peter was beside him, quiet for once. They approached me slowly, almost like strangers. Michael cleared his throat. "Mom, can we talk?" I gestured toward a bench under the oak tree. He sat down, took a deep breath. I lost my company. The investors pulled out. I guess I got what I deserved. Peter nodded, his voice trembling. "And I've been trying to find work. No one trusts me now." I stayed silent for a long moment, letting the wind fill the space between us. Then I said quietly, "You think I wanted you to lose everything?" Michael frowned. "Didn't you?" I shook my head. "No. I wanted you to learn that what you take without gratitude eventually disappears. I never wanted your ruin, just your realization." They both looked at me, eyes wet. Peter whispered, "We were awful to you, Mom." I smiled faintly. "No, you were human, just blind." Then I handed them 2 envelopes. Inside, I said, "Are deeds to small properties near the lake. They're yours if you promise one thing." "What's that?" Michael asked, confused. "Build something that gives back. A community center, a school, anything that heals instead of harms." They stared at me in disbelief. "After everything?" Peter said, "You'd still help us." I laughed softly. "You're still my sons, aren't you? Revenge isn't the end, it's just the lesson." That night, after they left, I sat outside watching the sunset golden light spilling over the garden. Mr. Cole came over with his sketchbook. "Mind if I draw you again?" he asked. I smiled. "Only if you make me look young." He chuckled. "That won't be hard. You've got more life in you than anyone here." He began sketching. After a while, he said quietly, "You ever regret forgiving them?" I looked toward the horizon and whispered, "No, because forgiveness is the final form of revenge. It keeps me powerful and them accountable." Months turned into a year. Willow Creek grew new residents, new wings, new hope. Rachel now volunteers every weekend. Michael funds the children's art program he built by the lake. And Peter manages a small bookstore near the nursing home. He visits me every Sunday, carrying novels and pastries. Life found its rhythm again, not perfect, not painless, but peaceful. Sometimes the younger staff ask me, "Mrs. Pierce, how did you manage all this? How did you stay strong when everyone gave up on you?" And I always smile, sip my tea, and say, when you stop waiting for people to understand your worth, that's when you finally own it. I'm Eleanor Pierce, the woman they sent away, the mother they underestimated, the soul who turned betrayal into rebirth. So if you're listening right now, remember this: never let anyone decide when your story is over. Because the best chapters are often written after everyone else stops reading and before you go. Subscribe, because somewhere out there, another woman is being told she's too old, too weak, or too late. She just hasn't realized yet she's already unstoppable. When you reach the end of your road, the world feels quieter, not because it's silent, but because you finally stop chasing noise. It's been 3 years since that night under the oak tree, when I forgave my sons. 3 years since Willow Creek stopped being a nursing home and became something far greater. Now, when you walk through these halls, you don't hear footsteps, you hear laughter. There's a mural painted across the lobby wall, a sea of faces, young and old, smiling together. At the center of it, the words, "Pierce Foundation, where dignity lives." That was my dream, and somehow I lived long enough to see it bloom. I sit by the same window every morning with my tea chamomile, 2 sugars, just like always. The sunrise falls through the blinds in gold stripes across my lap. Rachel visits every day now. Sometimes she brings her daughter, little Leela, who runs through the halls calling me Grand Nana. Michael and Peter stop by on weekends. They've built a community center by the lake, just like I asked. It's called Harbor Haven. They send me photos of children painting walls, volunteers planting gardens, people laughing. It's funny how life changes when you stop demanding an apology and start living like you never needed one. I no longer see my children as the villains of my story. They were lessons, necessary ones. Because without betrayal, I would never have found my independence. Without their cruelty, I would never have discovered my courage. And without their abandonment, I would never have created a place that saves so many others from loneliness. That afternoon, as the staff prepared for our annual Founders' Day, I looked out over the courtyard, the same courtyard where I once sat alone, forgotten. Now it's alive with color. There are ribbons, lanterns, music, people dancing. A young volunteer named Clara walked up to me, smiling. "Mrs. Pierce, the mayor's here to see you." I smiled faintly. "Tell him I'm exactly where I need to be." He approached a few minutes later, a kind man with a handshake that felt genuine. "Mrs. Pierce, your foundation has changed hundreds of lives. I'd like to announce a city partnership to expand Willow Creek nationwide." I laughed softly. "Nationwide? My goodness, I just wanted clean linens and good soup." He chuckled. "You built a movement." I shook his hand, my fingers trembling slightly. "Then promise me something." I said, "Promise it'll always feel like home. Not an institution, not a facility, a home." He nodded firmly. "I promise." That night, after the celebration ended, I walked slowly, carefully through every hallway of Willow Creek. The scent of lavender candles lingered in the air. Soft jazz played from someone's room down the hall. I stopped at the photo wall, dozens of faces framed together. Residents past and present, staff, families, children, volunteers. In the middle was a faded photo of me and my late husband, Robert. He was laughing, holding my hand, the wind in his hair. I touched the glass and whispered, "We did good, didn't we, Rob?" Then I smiled, because I knew it was time. Later that evening, I asked Rachel to sit with me. She looked worried. "Are you feeling okay, Mom?" I smiled softly. "I'm fine, sweetheart, just tired, but it's the good kind of tired." I reached into my nightstand and handed her a sealed envelope. "What's this?" she asked. "Something I wrote a while ago for when I'm ready to rest." She started to cry. "Don't talk like that." I held her hand gently. "Rachel, I've been alive long enough to know when peace knocks on your door. And right now, I hear it in the hall." She laid her head on my shoulder, and I whispered, "Don't grieve when I go. Just keep living the way I taught you, with grace, grit, and a little bit of stubborn pride." We sat like that for hours, mother and daughter, hearts mended, souls quiet. That night, the moon was full. The lights of the city shimmered across the lake outside my window. I closed my eyes and thought about all the versions of myself. I'd been the young bride, the devoted mother, the forgotten old woman, the silent owner, the queen who took her crown back without ever raising her voice. My breath slowed, my heartbeat softened, and in the silence I smiled, because I knew I'd finally written the ending my way. The next morning, the sun rose pink and gold. Rachel entered my room, holding 2 cups of coffee like she always did. "Morning, Mom," she said, smiling, but her voice broke when she saw me. I was resting peacefully, hands folded, a soft smile on my face. She sat beside me, shaking, tears falling silently. Then she noticed the note by my bedside, a small card in my handwriting. It read, "If you're reading this, don't cry. Just promise me you'll keep the light on for others. Because this home, this dream is yours now. And remember, forgiveness isn't weakness, it's wisdom." Beneath it, I'd written one last line. "They sent me here to disappear instead. I built a world where no one would ever feel forgotten again." Rachel held the note against her heart and whispered, "I love you, Mom." A week later, the city held a ceremony at Willow Creek. They renamed the main building the Eleanor Pierce Center for Dignified Living. Hundreds attended, residents, families, officials, volunteers. Michael spoke first, voice trembling. "My mother was more than our parent. She was our mirror. She showed us who we really were, even when it hurt. And when we broke her heart, she turned her pain into something beautiful." Peter followed, tears streaming down his face. "She taught me that it's never too late to make things right." Rachel ended the ceremony by reading my final note aloud, and by the time she finished, not a single person had dry eyes. Today, the Pierce Foundation has spread to 4 states. Each branch has a small plaque at the entrance that reads, "Inspired by a woman who refused to be forgotten." Sometimes new staff or residents look at my photo on the wall and ask, "Who was she?" And Rachel always smiles and says, "She was my mother, the woman they sent away, who ended up owning the very place they left her in. I am Eleanor Pierce." And if my story finds you, maybe you're sitting in silence, maybe someone told you you're too old, too tired, too late. Listen to me carefully. You still have chapters left. Write them with fire, live them with purpose. And before you go, subscribe, because one story ends, but another brave woman's is just beginning.